Good evening, and welcome back to the Poe Museum. Tonight, you're going to witness something of a reunion. For the first time since 1849, we are going to reunite two fragments of an often maligned and misunderstood Edgar Allan Poe manuscript. What's that manuscript? And where have these fragments been? We'll find out on tonight's installment of the Curator's Crypt. So here it is, a page of Poe's long, very technical essay about the history of English verse called The Rationale of Verse. You see right here, this is page number 18. So it's quite a long essay, a lot of really technical details about long syllables versus short syllables as opposed to accented syllables and unaccented syllables. And he even takes a pot shot at Henry Wadsworth Longfellow at the end, one of his rival poets. And people can't figure out if this is awful or pretty good. A lot of critics say that the essay exposes Poe's total ignorance of the history of English poetry. Other critics say that it actually foreshadows some of the tenets of modern linguistic studies. We're not here to decide which one's which. You're going to have to read and find out for yourself. But we do know that even back in Poe's time, he had trouble getting this thing published. In fact, it took him a long time to finish writing it. From the time he started until the time he finished was about 6 years. It first began as a somewhat shorter essay in 1842 called Notes upon English Verse. In 1842, things were going Poe's way. The previous year, he'd started at Graham's Magazine, where he published his first detective story, The Murders of the Rue Morgue, then The Descent of the Maelstrom. In 1842, there was The Oval Portrait and The Mask of the Red Death. All published in Graham's Magazine, so he thought this would be the perfect place to sell Notes upon English Verse. So the owner bought it and sat on it. He just wouldn't publish. He didn't get around to publishing it. And Poe said, "Why don't you publish my essay? It's great." So eventually, Poe got back his essay, and the following year he took it to The Pioneer, which was a fairly new magazine that had just published The Telltale Heart in the January issue, and they published Notes upon English Verse in the March issue, which became the magazine's last issue. Just a coincidence. I don't think Poe's essay had anything to do with it. But after this, Poe got the essay back and continued to work on it. He thought, well, maybe this essay needs to be longer and more detailed and more technical, and maybe I should alienate more people. So he worked on it and expanded it. And then 3 years later, it's 1846, and he was ready to try to publish it again. But now he's in a different situation. The Raven had come out the previous year, made him a household name, and his name was now synonymous with poetry. He was giving poetry readings up and down the East Coast and giving lectures about the poets and poetry of America. He'd even published another long essay called The Philosophy of Composition, explaining how he'd written the Raven. So Poe was really putting himself out there as an expert on poetry, and this was going to be instructive about how to construct poetry for maximum musical results. And he thought the perfect place to publish it was the same place that had first published The Raven, the American Review up in New York. He sold it to them, and nothing happened. They didn't print it. And he got frustrated. Why aren't you printing this? This is a great essay. So eventually he traded one of his poems for the essay so he'd get the essay back, and he took it down to Philadelphia, to Graham's Magazine. He thought, well, Graham's has a soft spot for me. I'll publish it there. And once again, they sat on it. They didn't print it. So he waited so long that he decided, well, I'm going to get it back from Graham's. I'm going to buy back my essay. And since I'm going to Richmond anyway, It's 1848 by now. So 2 years after he tried to get it published in the American Review, he took it down to the Southern Literary Messenger. He just showed at the messenger office. The owner, John Reuben Thompson, never met the guy, and he just shows up and says, "I am Poe." And he convinces him to publish this essay. And Thompson very soon afterwards admitted in one of his letters that he didn't really like the essay either. He said he published it more out of charity than anything else. He felt sorry for Poe. He said it was far too technical and bizarre for the average reader, and he's not wrong. This is an essay for poets. This is not something the average reader would get a lot out of. And the essay was so long that it wouldn't fit into just one issue, so Thompson had to break it up into 2 installments and publish them in consecutive issues. But at least it finally got printed, and it was never one of Poe's most popular essays. He still thought it was great to develop into a lecture that he could give around the country, but I think he was the only one who really thought that. I mean, the writing style of the essay is a little bit dense. I'll read you one sentence of it. Were the topic really difficult, or did it lie even in the cloud land of metaphysics, where the doubt vapors may be made to assume any and every shape, at the will or at the fancy of the gazer, we should have less reason to wonder at all this contradiction and perplexity, but in fact the subject is exceedingly simple. 1/10 of it possibly may be called ethical. 9/10, however, appertain to the mathematics, and the whole is included with the limits of the commonest common sense. So, yeah, this is a little bit dense language that Poe's using, doesn't really roll off the tongue too well, but you can see that Poe is really excited and passionate about what he's writing. Unfortunately, we don't know if Poe would have expanded this because he passed away the following year. And after Poe's death, John Reuben Thompson back at the Messenger still had the manuscript. And he decided to cut it up some more. He would give pieces to friends or to Poe fans out there. And before you know it, he's splitting up, sending pieces all over the place. So this is the Poe Museum's fragment. And this consists of one page, as I mentioned, page 18 right there. And he gave this to Lucy Dorothea Henry, who is the granddaughter of Patrick Henry, the Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death guy. And she was a friend of Poe's sister, and Poe's sister had actually helped her get one of Edgar Allan Poe's autographs. And Lucy Henry's a big autograph collector, so Thompson gave her this fragment of the manuscript along with a fragment of Poe's essay, Francis Sargent Osgood. She put it into her autograph album, and her daughters gave the autograph album to the Poe Museum back in 1928. So this has been here since the early days of the Poe Museum. But now I'm going to show you this other fragment. Don't let the size of the frame fool you. This is the fragment right here. It came from New York Poe collector Susan Jaffe Taine, one of the most renowned Poe collectors in the world right now. And if the other fragment is page 18, this is probably about page 8. And it's only a portion of a page. But it does come with a fragment of a note by John Reuben Thompson saying what this is. It says, "Fragment of manuscript written by Edgar Allan Poe." Just in case you didn't know what this was. We just don't know where it went after Thompson gave it away, and how it finally got up to New York, where Susan Jaffe Taine bought it at auction. But fortunately, she decided just a few weeks ago to donate this to the Poe Museum so we can start to reunite these fragments. So now you're witnessing the reunion of these two fragments. And you notice the paper is about the same, the handwriting is the same, so it's pretty obvious these are both parts of the same piece. The problem is there's a lot more pieces out there. There's at least 9 that we know of their location. So these are 2, there's 7 more that we know exist. But there must have been more because there's huge gaps between the different fragments. So who knows how many there could be. There could be large ones, like the size of our first one, or small fragments like the size of the second one. So maybe somebody out there has one or two of those other fragments and really wants to donate them to the Poe Museum right now. But if not, you can still support the museum or become a member by visiting poemuseum.org. So until we meet again, why don't you try giving The Rationale a verse a read and let us know down in the comments what you think. And until next time, thanks for joining us, and I'll leave you with more gratuitous footage of the Poe Museum cats doing Poe Museum cat stuff.